Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. My guest today is Dr. David Skolnik. He is the owner of the Stronger Emotion brand. He is the host of the Essential Strength podcast, and he is an instructor at the Pain-Free Performance Specialist Certification course, which I myself took. It's an outstanding course. Big shout out to them. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. What's up, David?
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Yeah, it's nice. This is 5 minutes from my house.
This
Really?
Really?
Yeah, straight up.
I think we
Google
actually
Maps said 5 minutes.
We brought that up when I was taking the cert, and I told you, I'm like, yeah, I'm in Morrison Ranch. You're like, oh, I think that's kind of close to me. I think we're right in the same. Are you in Morrison Ranch?
No, I live on the north side of Guadalupe, but off Wrecker.
Oh,
So
perfect.
Straight shot.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jake, Eli, just so you guys know, I met David during the PPSC certification. He was the instructor, and it was, how long ago was that now? Is that 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago?
That was probably 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago. Dude, time is flying.
Yes.
But yes, met him, exceptionally gifted teacher, sincerely, bro. I've taken dozens and dozens of those things. That was very, very poignant, very good stuff. It was basically a foundational course. It was based around the principles of a proper dynamic warm-up. So
Okay.
it was, and it's what I love so much about this world is that you can take like one small, the warm-up, that's like 1/10 of one session of someone's program over a month and a lifetime, and take 2 days. It was 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It took 16 hours just to focus on that.
Wow.
I love, that's what I like, to my point, getting really, really deep on one or two areas. It's what I like about this.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool course. The first day is like 100% 6-phase dynamic warm-up. And then day 2 of the course is how does that warm-up feed into our 6 foundational movement patterns that we teach in PPSC, which is the squat, the hinge, the lunge, the push, the pull, and the carry. It's on the back of my t-shirt.
Yep.
And yeah, you can talk for 8 hours on Saturday. And I love it when you're like 6 hours in and it's like, guys, we're 6 minutes into the warm-up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't
Yeah.
forget that we're only 6 minutes into the warm-up, and the warm-up isn't even the training.
Exactly.
Right, so we're 6 minutes into their session, and the session's 60 minutes. But like, you can be so systematized, but still not be like super dogmatic, right? And be like, this is the only way to warm up.
Right.
It's a 6-phase system, individualized to your client. But yeah, if you want to be a good trainer, like, you should be able to talk about a warm up and think about a warm up and think about it for 8 hours and choose things on purpose.
Yeah. And choose certain warm-up movements that pertain to the exact movement pattern of that workout.
Right.
That is one thing that is, I feel, even in myself, was lacking for maybe, say, the first third of my career as a trainer. I got really dogmatic with my warm-ups. I was like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this. And that's the warm-up for everything, no matter what. And I always focused on, my education was always based on the training. It wasn't ever really focused on expanding the warm-up process to get ready for the training. And so it's been a very, very good test of myself to keep expanding that. And this certification, specifically this one, how many different variations of the PPSC certifications are there? Because you mentioned there's kettlebell, there's mace.
Yeah, so the one you took is formerly called Level 1, which is now our Foundations course.
Yeah.
And then we have PPSC Training, which is our Level 2. Okay. So that essentially takes day 2 of the Foundations course and spreads that out over a full 16 hours.
Okay.
So you get the movement pyramids, the squat, the hinge, the lunge, the push, the pull, and the carry. But then you explore the pyramid like laterally as well. So it's not just, level 1's a TRX squat, level 2's a body weight squat, level 3's a goblet squat to a box, 4 is a goblet squat without a box. Then it's like, what if we added bands to that?
Yeah.
What if we included tempo? What if we did accommodating resistance via chains? What if we did unstable surface training? And then it's 16 hours of like a little bit of talking, lots of practicing.
Yeah.
So you get to feel like, what does a offset loaded band assisted split squat with the rear foot elevated feel like?
Yes.
And like, what client might benefit from that under what circumstances, and like breakout conversate. And then we have a 16-hour functional kettlebell training certification. So it sticks to that same 6 foundational movement patterns. So I think it's kind of like the only kettlebell cert that gets outside of swing, clean, snatch, get up.
which is on it,
which is like everything.
Yeah. That's what I did when I went on it. Was that?
Yeah, on it does that, and Strong First does that, and most of the big kettlebell certs that are like Russian kettlebells, are. It's going to be 2 days of that, and then you take a test where it's like, can you do a one-arm push-up? Can you do, a throat to bar pull-up with X percentage of your body weight? And that's the Strong First stuff. But what we do via, it was developed by Cliff, who's our COO, is how do you apply kettlebells to all 6 foundational movement patterns? Like, how do you add a kettlebell snatch with a step up? Like, what about lateral? What about rotational double kettlebell? So the first time we taught it was last January in San Diego, up on it's called Fit Mission Beach. So we were outside on this like 3rd floor rooftop gym deck on the boardwalk.
I'm sure that really sucked.
It's horrible. It's the worst course I ever took. It was, and so like the first day and a half was all up on that rooftop. And then the final half of day 2, we went to the beach and just worked on like kettlebell juggling where you can like drop it in the sand.
That's great.
And it was so cool. And like
amazing.
big group circuits with kettlebells.
If you live on the beach, man, all you need is a kettlebell. You can crush yourself on the beach with a kettlebell.
Yeah,
absolutely. Kettlebells are like the golf of fitness. Like you could swing a kettlebell till you die.
Yeah.
We have a programming certification, which is online only, 16-hour deep dive into programming.
That would be a good one.
That's been consensus everyone's favorite like specialty course. So
I'm gonna have you get me dates on when all of these are offered.
Absolutely,
especially that one. The next one I was considering was the kettlebell. It's a practice that I'm a little shallow on. I have a very decent base of understanding with kettlebells and all the movements that you mentioned I can perform with a kettlebell, but getting really intensive with that is just like the warm up. See, for me, I think most of my education has all been focused on level 2, as you mentioned. Like your level 2 is probably what I spent like 95% of my time, because I love that stuff. Like, how can I take this, add chains, unstable surface? How can I do odd object training mixed with cardio, mixed with, you know what I mean? Like, that to me is how I spend most of my time when I develop training. Programming, kettlebells, all those other offshoots are probably where I would want to go next with this, because I love this stuff. I'm a total junkie for it. I love learning all of that.
The kettlebell cert was awesome. I haven't had a chance to go through the programming certification yet. Like, that's one that I'll probably kind of do on my own time as soon as I can, or sit in next time it's done, like live online.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We did a 16-hour business, like fitness business certification with...
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
With John Russin. So he's talking about like, how do you build like a fitness empire side of things. But then we had 4 hours from the perspective of like a personal trainer inside of a big box gym. Like, how do you be an intrapreneur within one of those models?
Right.
And then 4 hours on like, okay, let's say you transition to being an independent contractor. How do you grow that business? Like, what are the legal things you need to think about? How do you build a clientele there? Then it was 4 hours. What if you own your own standalone gym? What do you do there? What are the legal things there? Like, what are you looking for in a building? How important is parking? How important is it that you're not on the second floor and then the neighbors below you're like, stop slamming the fucking medicine ball. I'm gonna get the landlord to kick you guys out. And you're like, shit, I invested all of my own money into this, and now I gotta find a new deposit and a new space. And then it was also like how do you build an online fitness business and hire a staff. So that was a really cool one. And then we have a mobility cert, an online 16-hour mobility cert.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's 2022 was sort of like the year of going from the foundations course with a couple level 2s around the country that are less frequent to like, let's build a kettlebell cert that's functional. Let's build a mobility cert that's like totally unique in the industry. Let's do a business cert that's no one's ever done before.
How long have you been involved with the PPSC?
I took the course in January of 2021.
Okay.
And Cliff taught it. It was here in Scottsdale at Avasa. One of our other instructors is like head of fitness development for Vasa. She writes all their group programming, like supervises their hiring. She's fantastic. Her name's Ginny. And so I took the course with Cliff. And then after day 1, he asked if I had any interest in teaching.
After day 1.
Yeah. So I was the only PT. So people ask me this when I teach, like, how did you end up doing this? It was like, I was in the right place at the right time with the right background.
Yeah.
Right. So
your background is, if you could briefly.
Yeah, sure. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I compete and coach in powerlifting. I train people online and in person. I've done group fitness. I hosted a podcast, which is currently sort of in a hiatus based on time constraints.
You don't have to explain that.
I've like kind of developed my own little like local workshops for the last few years, depending on where I've lived, and hosted those.
Yeah.
So I'm very comfortable talking in front of people. And so when I took the course, I was the only PT.
Yeah.
It's usually like 85% fitness professionals in our level one. PTs tend not to want to take fitness courses, even though it'd probably be something
we had a few
really
in when I was there. There were like 3 or 4 PTs. I was even surprised. It was because you're right. It's usually not. It's not the practice of PTs. There seems to be oftentimes a bit of a divide between what PTs do and what trainers tend to do, and it usually becomes, okay, I got hurt, now I'm going to go see my PT. And the PT typically doesn't have access to the kinds of equipment to push the person well enough to where they don't have to go back to their trainer. Typically you go, at least that's always been my experience. And it's a big reason why I want to expand and do the PT clinic here, is to be able to, get a PT that can also use everything we already have and have a location that fits for the people that are training here. And so it is surprising to see so many PTs, and it's exciting to know that there are people in your field that are also taking strength training so seriously. And I understand it was the warm-up level 1 cert, so that I suppose does appeal a bit more to PTs.
Yeah.
All that stuff we went over. That's the other thing about the certification, the one that I took, that was so incredible, is you can accomplish that full 6-phase dynamic warm-up with little or no equipment access. It's mostly bands, body weight, and a foam roller. Like, that's really all you need in order to perform that. And that's great. That minimalistic ideology is the most accessible for the most amount of people.
Yeah, like one of our biggest slogans is make lightweight feel heavy so that heavyweight feels light. Right? And it's like, we want you to own the body weight stuff and make a body weight squat feel harder than you ever thought it possibly could, so that you can earn the goblet squat. Right? And once that goblet squat feels super solid and looks super solid to the coach's eye, then you've like earned the right to do a Zercher squat. And you've earned the right to do a front squat, and you earn the right to do, and some people, like, you say earn and people are like, you're a gatekeeper of exercise, let people do what they want. You're like, that's fine. I've never trained anyone in your life, and half your clients are probably hurt right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a big disconnect. As PTs, we don't learn anything about periodization. Like, we don't learn the differences between like training for hypertrophy versus strength versus muscle endurance. Like, I learned that going through the CSCS.
Yeah, right.
And so what I was saying is I've been involved in this for going on 2 years. The course I taught a month ago was my first time ever teaching solo. I've traveled and done assisting.
Yeah.
So I've been on it with a coach named Roman. I've been in San Diego with Ginny. I've been in Tucson with Justin, who's another physical therapist. And yeah, again, it's kind of like right place, right time, right background.
My class
right
was
willing.
the first one
that was
you
the first one I
ever did alone.
solo.
Bravo. Yeah. You did a good job, man.
Thank you.
That was really good. No, seriously. Like I said, I've taken dozens of those kinds of weekend workshops and certifications and stuff. It was very, very good. It was a good use of time.
Appreciate that.
What would you say, because this is one of the topics that I really wanted to dive into. I want to talk about training, and specifically, I did not know that y'all offered a business course specifically to address this very issue. As a trainer, we do some seminar work where we talk about the once upon a time trainer. That's the trainer who goes into LA Fitness with their cert. They want to start off, they want to build their clients, and then eventually hope to leave, and then eventually get the money to get their own space. Hopefully those people leave with them, probably not. Then they have overhead, then they try to make it all over again. To me, that sounds like the single worst business plan that anybody could ever come up with, and it's what I think maybe 80 to 90% of the trainers I talk to, they're on that once upon a time trainer journey. What is your opinion, and what advice would you give to those people? How do they break free of that?
So I think, and I have a former colleague from Portland, and we've been on a couple calls recently, because she's going from working in like corporate wellness to going back to personal training. And it's like, where do I sort of restart? Right? Do I try and find like a small sort of like private club? Do I look somewhere like Equinox? She's in the Bay Area. Do I just try and do my own thing right away? And so I think for people who are newer, in general, I am a fan of the idea of working in a big box gym to start,
Okay.
because I think you need the reps with the people. Like, I think you need a pipeline of clients that are just being fed to you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be basically forced to learn how to sell
Mhm.
yourself and like separate yourself from a group in like a 40,000 square foot gym
Yeah.
that could have 40 personal trainers. Like, why are they going to pick you? That's kind of important to figure out.
Mhm.
Yep.
You're going to learn what type of client you like to train,
Mhm.
which might be even more important, because if you're going to go out and do this on your own and you want to make fitness a career,
Mhm.
and 80% of your clients you don't enjoy working with, and like you dread that they're on your schedule every week, like that's going to burn you out so fast.
And
Like,
especially
just become a physical therapist. Like,
Yeah.
let insurance send you people.
yeah. And in the beginning, you won't have the freedom to be too selective. If
No,
they come to
not
you
at
and
all.
they say yes,
Yeah.
you're stuck with them.
You're gonna
Train. You'll train their dog if they ask you
Yeah.
to. Like in the beginning, you're starving. And
Totally.
that's
Totally.
normal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I totally agree. I think that is a super common route. And I don't even necessarily think that that's a bad way to go, because I do think for new personal trainers, you should go to a big gym, like an Equinox or like a Lifetime, where they have continuing education like built into their model. Like,
Yep.
Equinox does so much in-house education.
Do we have an Equinox? There isn't in Arizona,
There's not
is
an
there? No.
Equinox here, but there are multiple Lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like, we just signed, PPSC just signed a contract with Lifetime.
Is that
to
the
provide
one you
in-house
would
education.
would you go on record and suggest a big box gym that people should lean toward?
I mean, Equinox has a fantastic reputation for creating like world-class trainers.
Okay.
Multiple coaches on the PPSC lead instructor staff
Sure.
came up through Equinox and became like, they were the trainer of the year for 2 straight years in the state of New York. Right. And then they went out on their own.
Nice.
Right. Because they kind of tapped out.
Yeah.
But you can make 6 figures in a gym like that if you're really good at what you do. And
Yeah.
you're willing
Yeah.
to put in the time. And then you have so many people that potentially will follow you. But I think the issue would be if you don't figure out who you want to work with and kind of like what niche you want to go into, that's the recipe where then you leave and you don't have that pipeline of clients, and you're not like the guy or the girl for something, and there's no reason for people to seek you out.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's a big thing. And that's in physical therapy too. Like,
Yeah.
physical therapy right now is sort of, I think, fracturing in 2 directions, which is giant corporate companies buying up small mom and pop clinics and incorporating them into these like nationwide networks, which contract with all the big insurance companies.
Yeah.
But because reimbursement sucks, you're seeing 3 to 4 patients an hour,
That does seem like a burnout situation.
which is a burnout situation for the therapist. It's not the type of care you go to school to provide, but it's the only way for those businesses to be profitable, because insurance pays the therapist so little.
Right.
And then the other side is the therapist saying, I don't want to deal with insurance at all, except maybe Medicare, because they actually pay.
Yeah.
And if you're 85, you're not paying cash for anything. If
Right,
you have
yeah,
Medicare, you're going to go to Medicare provider. But they're opening a cash-based clinic where they can charge what they want, treat how they want. But you need to have some sort of a niche.
Yeah.
So if you're a generalist, why is someone going to pay you cash when they could go a block away and pay
get
a
it covered?
$5 copay?
Right, exactly. That's got to be one of the biggest differences between the PT and the trainer world, is the inclusion of insurance.
Yeah.
As a trainer, and we went through several different transitions of processing payments and how to do it. We did, of course, long-term commitments, short-term commitments, split session, all that kind of stuff. But not including insurance is sort of both a disservice and a service to you at the same time.
For fitness, it's like, do you want to get in bed with insurance companies?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it would be awesome to think that health insurance valued personal fitness enough to be like, we will cover
Yeah.
your gym membership and $100 a month towards personal training.
Isn't it gross that
But
they
at the
won't?
same time, you're like, but do you want
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Because then you're going to have to like write notes about your sessions, most likely, and you're going to have someone auditing your training, because insurance isn't going to pay for you to do something that they don't think you should. And you're going to have old trainers getting hired to like review your training sessions and be like, don't pay for that one.
Yeah.
That's crap.
Yeah.
They're like, no. Like, to my client, we've taught. So Yes
Yeah.
and no.
I think you see companies starting to move more towards like proactive training, health, wellness programs, and they're actually putting it into budgets now where, a certain amount of their budget goes to that corporate wellness. And so that's kind of cool. They're a little ahead of the curve, when compared with insurance companies, but it's cool to see that transition happening.
I love that. Like I spent a couple months a couple of years ago like researching how to potentially like break into that side of things, like providing corporate fitness,
Yeah.
because that's the perfect in between.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to deal with insurance,
Right.
but you don't necessarily have to ask the individual to pony up 100% of their own money
To do it.
if you could get an employer to pay X dollars per head to provide some sort of a training plan to their employees based on data that shows, if you exercise for 45 minutes in the middle of the day, your productivity for the afternoon goes up, like sick days go down, back pain goes down, and back pain's the number one reason people don't go to work.
Yep.
All this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that's a blossoming thing with things like, Google and companies like that sort of leading the way with their on-campus gyms and on-campus rehab and on-campus sports leagues and nap time and all this like revolutionary stuff.
You mentioned finding the niche. That's a really good one to find yourself in. If you can get the proper paperwork and credentials to back up your claim and get in with a big corporate company and get into, their gym or their private area, or maybe you just lead something in a conference room. But if that's your thing, then you can get reoccurring. That's a really good way to have reoccurring clientele. If the company is your client, most likely they won't drop you, at least not like a normal person would. A normal person will go for a month and then quit. A big company like Google will probably, if they like what you do, they'll keep you on for a while.
Yeah. And I think it's an easier sell. Like, hey, do you want, like, we could take $40 pre-tax out of your paycheck and you get 3 workouts a week and you get access to our like on-campus gym. You're like, yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah,
that'd be great, right?
No, it's a good way to go, and it's an out of the box way of thinking about it, which is a big part of why I think so many people do get tripped up in the beginning. They don't quite, and it's understandable because I didn't really either. You don't quite know which direction you want to take the first 5 years as a PT or as a trainer. You're finding yourself in, especially in a box gym, you've got 30 people around you that are 5-10 years ahead of you. They've been there for a while. They've already got their clients. And like you said, it's very competitive. I mean, if you go into LA Fitness, Lifetime, and you're trying to get fed clients, well, you need to have a reason why. They're not going to be fed to the guy ahead of you. Like, why should they feed them to you?
Yeah.
That's one of the, you bring up a good point, but that's one of the, in my opinion, the values of being in a big box gym too, is the idea of mentorship. Like, you've got people that have been there, that have done it, that are actually, bringing in revenue and have clients, and they can kind of show you the ropes where
if they're willing to.
But if you're going out on your own, you're not getting that opportunity, that same opportunity that you would in a big box gym. So I do think that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then use it. Like, if you think that a big box gym is not going to be you forever, which it's not going to be for most people, unless you want to like move up that ladder to like, I'm going to manage a branch of whatever, LA Fitness or eSporta, whatever it's called now, or I want to be like the East Valley Lifetime Fitness sort of like supervisor. Great. But I think if you know that eventually, like most of us do, I think most people who get into fitness are also relatively entrepreneurial. Then as soon as possible, it's like, I mean, take notes, think about who do you like to work with? Who seems to like working with you might even be more important.
Oh, heck yeah.
Who do you feel the most comfortable with?
Yep.
Right? It might be women 65 to 75, which is like a pretty lucrative market to be in.
Oh, I would say that's probably the best.
Yeah. I think
females over the age of
70% of people who hire a personal trainer are women, and a vast majority of those are like 35 to 55.
Yep.
Like, it's not gonna
I would have said over 40.
It's not going to be 20 because they don't have any money.
When you're young and stupid, oftentimes you think, I just want to work with pros. That would be it. Get to the pro level. And a small bit about my background, I actually started with the NFL. I started with PEP, and I did that for about 4 years. Probably my least favorite demographic to work with are high level athletes. It's perfectly fine, and it's not a problem. I get why it attracts that, but you're talking about a subsect of people who are going to improve maybe 1 to 5%. People with oftentimes very large egotistical thought process around training around themselves. Young kid, $5 million in 1 year, who wouldn't be egotistical. It's a difficult group to fashion your entire niche around, but I also see the value in getting in with a mentor who's doing something like that. If you can find someone today, literally when I was getting us Dutch Bros, I pull up, the guy sees me in the truck and he's, oh, I recognize you from TikTok. You're what's one thing? He's like, I'm trying to think about doing this. What's one thing I should do if I want to be a trainer? Like, what's the very first thing I should do? And I'm like, oh, get a really good trainer. He's like, no, I want to be a trainer. I'm like, yeah, get a really, really good trainer. Like, find somebody who's ahead of you, get with them, have them work with you. I found Ian, and his place, he brought me on as an intern, but I also paid to be a client. And I did that for 4 years. That's what gave me the understanding of, okay, I don't think I want to do a big box gym experience like a lot of my peers are, but I also have been given a invaluable experience on how to program, how to periodize, and how these guys at the top, if I can figure out how to train Jeff Charleston, I can train the 45-year-old woman from Morrison Ranch, no problem. Absolutely. It's just kind of tapering it all down.
Yep. I completely agree. And I would say don't be like, part of it is also, I think being open-minded about that and not predetermining who your favorite client is going to be. That was like one of the things I ran to as a PT, like graduating from school. It's like, I thought I knew who I wanted to work with. Yeah. And I sort of just like forced myself into that situation, even though once I'd done like my internships, that was probably my least comfortable setting, was like orthopedics.
Is that what you thought you wanted to do?
That's what I went to school to do.
Gotcha.
And then I ended up going back into like geriatrics and working with older people, like complex problems, but very simple treatments, and like built some confidence. And now I'm back in orthopedics, but I'm a confident therapist.
Right.
And I can understand, like, I don't feel personally responsible when people aren't necessarily getting better, where I'm much more patient and I can preach patience because I've got enough experience.
Yeah. Respect the process. Go ahead, Jake.
What words of advice would you have for like a young personal trainer trying to find their niche, like who they want to work with? What would you tell them?
Well, I think there's probably a couple ways. One would be, again, like, who do you enjoy working with?
Absolutely.
Who do you feel the most naturally comfortable around? I think that niche can change.
And be open to that. Be open to the possibility of changing your market, changing who you work with. If you get stuck, like if you'd have just stayed with orthopedics and refused to change, probably wouldn't have happened the way that it did for you today.
No. And then I think, like, you'll get feedback from clients too. Like, who do you do the best with? Who re-ups? Like, who sticks with you for like 6 straight months? And then the one other thing I would say would be, if you want to be a good professional in any industry, fitness counts as one of these for sure. It's like, what do you enjoy learning about? Because if you want to have a niche and develop a reputation as like the best person in the area for something, like, you're going to have to commit to learning about it.
And loving it.
Yeah. That's how I knew eventually I was going to get back into like sports and orthopedics as a physical therapist. Because even when I was working with like stroke patients and 95-year-olds with broken hips and all that kind of stuff, and I enjoyed my patient interactions, like, I was still training people in a gym on the side. Right? I'm like reading strength and conditioning articles. I'm watching strength and conditioning. I'm not going down the like stroke rehab rabbit hole and like can't wait for that 3-day acute stroke vestibular rehab course. I was still working in skilled nursing when I took PPSC. Like, I wasn't working in orthopedics. I was working with online clients, and I was working in a gym like 3 hours a week. But those are the people I wanted to be around. I just needed to rebuild my confidence that I could treat them as patients.
Yeah. One other thing to your point, figure out what style of training you want to do. Figure out if you want to do one-on-ones exclusively. Do you want to do small group? Do you want to lead a boot camp? Do you want to be an online trainer? You need to figure that piece out. And just like with what kind of a niche do you want to create, you need to be open to the possibility of that changing. You need to be able to, hey, if I just go into this and I think, okay, I want to do one-on-ones and that's it. And that's it for me. I'm going to get to where I can charge $150 and that's it, the end of the road. And you never open up to the possibility of pivot. I think you leave a lot on the table. Even just speaking monetary amounts. Like, you may find, aside from just the money you may not make, you are also leaving open the possibility that you may love something more than you ever think, because you never experienced it. And for me, I mean, it was, if you started with, I think I did one boot camp style training when I was in California, And I started out that way. I thought, hey, maybe this would be, because obviously everyone told me, hey, if you lead classes, that's where the money's at. And so I started that way. And within a month, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm not really big on this. This is just kind of, my ADD is too, I'm trying to correct everyone's form. It's just not enough time. It didn't really work. So I steered away. But that would be something that I would think very important for the new trainer to figure out.
Yeah. And then this is just a great question. One thing that I will definitely preach till I die to newer trainers, like, what courses should I take?
Oh, that's a good one.
Take courses, especially if they're in person. But then, so the weekend after I taught in Phoenix, I went to San Diego and I taught there. And there was someone who's new to training, and they just feel like they've got the imposter syndrome. I don't know enough. They didn't want to even start training people because they didn't feel like they knew enough to train anyone. Yeah. Like, well, you got to start first. But they're like, maybe I'll go back and get like a master's in like exercise physiology. And you're like, your clients don't care.
No.
Clients don't care.
Don't.
Right? So you already know more than them.
Yeah.
Just by doing a NASM cert or an ISSA. Like, you already know more than the people who didn't take that cert.
I see you looking back at it.
And so, context.
To give a context. So I have a master's in exercise science. As the capstone course for the exercise science curriculum, they mandated that we take a certification test. And a little bit about me. I despise proctored exams. I hate that format. I don't learn from it. And especially, I chose NASM because it was one of the only ones they offered. They're like, you can take the NASM CPT. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll take it. And everyone who was like a coach, who they have all these workshops on how to learn from and study guides, and they were all saying, just so you know, this style of training is shit. Like, their format, all that stuff is not, it's not good. Do not apply this to clients. Just take it. I understand why you need it. Just take it. So I didn't really take it all that seriously, and I went in and I failed it.
You did lose internet connection though.
I did. I went in, the internet went down, and then I ran out of time. I ran out of time and I failed it, but I got the master's, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going back and taking that again. And so now it's being held.
He'll never hear the end of that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I need to just pass it just so y'all can seriously stop.
That's how all standardized tests are. Like, you got to take the test because you got to take the test, and then you forget it. But what I would say is, so like, obviously I'm biased. I would say every fitness professional should take the PPSC course as one of the first.
I agree.
Once you're certified as a trainer, take PPSC level 1.
Distinguish the difference, because you just said something that's very important. Once you're certified, then take the PPSC. And for trainers or people who are listening who want to understand the difference, your certifications are often what we were just discussing. They're proctored exams. They have little, an NASM or a CSCS or an ISSA. That's a certification. And there's a big sort of disconnect, maybe not a disconnect, but a little bit of a disagreement over the importance of certification over practical application. And what you guys are doing with the PPSC, while it is technically a certification, that test was, it's willy-nilly, it's open book, it's nothing. But the hands-on experience, in my opinion, you will learn. It's why I keep taking stuff like this. I'm a junkie for it. If you are hands-on in person, something with a good course and a good instructor, I find that you will learn so much more than if you even, like I said, I had a master's. That is not what I recommend to people doing when they want continued education. I'm like, if you want continued education, you need to find a good instructor or a good weekend workshops. Just take those. Those may not be your certification that gets you your job interview, but once you have one or two of those, you don't need any more. And like you said, no one cares.
Yeah. So what I mean by certification is like, a lot of gyms will require a baseline. It's like a license, essentially, right? You're like a licensed or a certified, a CPT, a certified personal trainer, via one of these larger governing bodies. NASM, ISSA, NSCA, if you want to be a strength coach.
ACE.
Yep. ACE, absolutely.
Yep. CSDS.
So that's like a
CSDS the
CSDS
best, probably.
Different. Yeah, it's.
Would you say it's
got to have an undergraduate degree
in order to even qualify
for
it?
The CSCS, and that's the one that would make you eligible to work in a collegiate strength and conditioning.
That's the top one, in my opinion. Right? Am I right on that? You probably know more than me. That's the best one.
Yeah. I mean, The other three mean you can work at 24 Hour Fitness. CSCS means you could get hired at like Purdue to work for their football team.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
But those are typically required just to work in most of these bigger box gyms, right? It's a barrier to entry thing. Like you put in the time, you studied, you have some knowledge of anatomy and training. Whether it's outdated or not, like doesn't matter. Probably is. Everything is. Anyway, right? Yeah. The research we read was done 4 years ago.
Right.
Right. And then it had to be like reviewed. Then the paper had to be reviewed and rewritten 4 times. And then it got published. So it's like research. 2022 research was done in 2018. It's already outdated. Who cares? But once you have the baseline foundational certification that makes you eligible for a job in a gym, then I would say everyone should take PPSC.
I agree.
Because every one of your clients should have a functional warm-up, and you should understand the 6 foundational movement patterns. And it gives you sample programming for like any client you want. Once a week, twice a week, 4 times a week, this type of split, body weight split, full body every day, strength-based, hypertrophy. Like it's literally in there.
Just for the pyramids that go with each one of those movement patterns, squat, hinge, you've got, because I went over, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know, call it 8 out of 11 of these movements, but this was worth it just for me to see the last 3. Yeah. If you're somebody who's just starting out and you're taking, because most everyone, if they're logically thinking and they find your course, they will take the one I just did. They'll take foundations. All right, that's definitely the beginning. I need to take this one. You're going to walk out of there with 50, I don't know how many movement patterns, different workout variations there were, at least 50.
10 per pyramid.
Yeah.
The pyramid has 2 sides. So you're talking like 120
120 exercises just right there. 120 exercises that if you adapt those, that's your entire training module right there. That's everything. That's worth the price of admission, just that.
And what I'll tell people after that, right, like PPSC, because it's immediately actionable, like it will make you a better trainer. I don't know that going back and getting a master's in exercise science will actually make you a better trainer. Or if you've got NASM, like should you go get a CSCS if you're still just planning on working in a big box gym? Probably not going to make you a better trainer.
Yeah.
So then I would say choose a certification that clients will pay you for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Has an ROI.
Take a kettlebell course. That's going to make you stand out. I'm the kettlebell guy. I can now create a kettlebell group training class, and no one else is doing that where I work. No one else is doing that in my zip code. So like, once you've got the basic knowledge, then take something that like is a weekend that makes you a specialist in something, right? Take a Joel Jamieson conditioning course. Go do something that is like starting to like get that inch wide, mile deep. Like start going deeper. Soon.
A Joel Jamieson. I'm sorry.
He wrote like the Bible on like how to create like 8 weeks out. He wrote. He's that.
Have
guy.
You taken it? I want to.
No.
But I'm the second person to mention that. Yeah.
Do things that are specialties.
Right.
Take a kettlebell course. Take a functional body. Like I don't know. Just take something that starts to narrow your scope. And people are like
generalist
kettlebell course. Like that's different.
Yeah.
Not just another guy who did another exercise science study.
Yeah.
Yeah. The saying is generalists get general pricing, specialists get special pricing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who's like the most famous? Oh my gosh, what's his name? The investor who like still lives in his childhood home. The British dude.
Like Eli'd be the one.
You're not
Murdoch?
talking about
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. That's
who I thought you were talking
about. I just saw a little clip of him, and he's like, the best thing you can invest in is becoming a specialist and the best at what you do.
Yeah.
Because no matter how bad the economy is, no matter what else is happening in the world, he's like, people will trade you their wheat for your skill. So like, you got to have the skill that's the best in the area, and like, you will never be hungry because people will always need the best person at anything.
It's why I did this here.
Yeah.
When I first started scoping, I remember when I was looking at houses, it was an option to go anywhere. And immediately if you had the idea and someone's like, okay, I want to create a really elite one-on-one or semi-private training facility, where should I go? Almost everybody would be like, okay, Scottsdale. Go to Scottsdale. That's your location. I looked at that, and first off, I knew Ian was there. So I was like, okay, I don't think I want to be in his market. I'm going to look out here. And 8 years ago, this was farmlands and like cows and nothing else. Took a gamble on that. But now, out here, there are no elite private. There are very few. Very, very, very few. In fact, there might be a couple more since, but not that many. Location is enormous if you are to do something like this. And like you said, finding a place where no one else is.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
And it
Like,
takes
look at On It.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's been there.
You're in
Like,
Austin, right?
Yeah,
Austin.
it's in
Yeah,
Austin.
Austin.
The gym is incredible.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
like a fitness speakeasy. It's crazy. You walk into this like little front area with like a cafe that serves
Right
like,
into the-
one thing
Yep.
and coffee, and like they sell the crazy monkey. Like
When's the last time you went there?
I taught there in February of this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite locations.
So cool.
It's such a cool
Like
gym.
this is so small. This is so weird. And then you walk through a door and you're like, gym.
Yeah.
And then you're like another door and you're like, oh, another gym.
I walked in
And
and
another
Cowboy
door, you're
Cerrone
like, a
was
third gym. Like this is
the sweat
insane.
room, the
Yeah.
sweat studio in
Yeah.
there is. They have
Black
this.
light,
It's like a
freaking
black
crazy.
light, dim. It's like the coolest spin studio you've ever seen, but it's all maces and clubs, and it's called the sweat studio. I think is what it's called. It's got this
Like
big
the black
ape
light painting.
that's like you got like Joe Rogan on the wall. I was walking in when I did this, and Cowboy Cerrone was walking out. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is actually a really good spot. I knew it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to On It. They have an
But they
awesome
were
facility.
probably one of the first elite training places in Austin before Austin blew up.
blew up.
Right? And
Yeah.
there's still NFL and MLB players who only go there in the off season.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, their facility is unique. It's got because it's not CrossFit, but it's also not like a bodybuilding place. Like they don't have a lot of machines. They have a very healthy and interesting style of training that goes on in there.
It's very, very functional, quote unquote functional.
Right. That word's there's something gets thrown around a lot. Functional.
Yeah, for sure.
Austin
right.
has kind of become a weird hub for like now podcasting and then like gyms. It's kind of got this weird, and then it's got the
Well, I think it's Rogan.
musical scene and
Yeah.
all that. It's an interesting spot.
Everybody moved there during COVID. Everybody just
Yeah.
up and went to Austin.
And it was already expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had already
Yeah,
blown up with tech. Austin's fun though.
Austin is fun.
Yeah. But I think it's a very good point. You're like, where are the people?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, another thing is like, who can afford you?
Yeah.
Like I obviously want to work with as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would love if everyone could afford to work with me, but that's not realistic.
No.
Right. And if fitness is going to be your career, even if like any career, it's like, even if you would do it for free, you can't.
Right.
Right. Because
No.
then you got to do something else.
Yeah.
You got to make money somehow.
And you're doing everyone a disservice in that equation if
Yeah.
you're undercutting your. I was briefly when that question was asked after the course that day one, I touched on that. It's you're doing everybody in that equation a real disservice by undercharging, including the person that's paying you.
Yeah.
Because someone paying you, less than your worth is less invested than they should be.
Jonathan Goodman just posted something about that today. He's like, how did I take my business? The guy who wrote the PTDC
I saw that
book.
post. Yeah.
He's like, what are 5 things I did to go from like losing money in 2021 to making money in 2022? And one of them was like, instead of lowering my prices, I doubled them.
Yeah.
It's like better clients, better training plans, better consistent effort, right? Better referrals.
Yeah.
Like everything went up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get clients that put skin in the game. They show up. They do the work. So yeah.
How do you think online fitness and in-person fitness can, in a most, call it a collaborative way, operate at the same time for the same trainer? Like, where do you fall on that?
So here's what I personally do. So I do some one-on-one coaching, but it's relatively limited because my time is very limited. Like I'm a full-time clinician and I'm a coach on the side and I travel and teach. I just don't have a lot of time for one-on-ones.
Right.
What I do more of is semi-private, right? 4-to-1 ratio, client to coach.
Yep.
So I can keep prices much more reasonable for my clients, but I make more as a coach in that hour than I would with a really high-priced personal training session.
Yep.
Then with clients so part of this right now is because my time is limited. There are people who only get to work with me once a week, semi-private. So it's like 4-to-1 ratio once a week.
Which is semi-private.
We all know
4-to-1.
4-to-1. Yep.
Yeah.
And we all know, like I know and they know that's not enough to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
So then what I offer is an add-on, right? You work with me once a week in person, and then I have a monthly rate to add online programming that you do on your own time.
Yeah.
So that's they get both. They have me as an online coach and they have me as an in-person coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one really good way, right? Because then it's just a recurring like subscription-based online coaching. It's incongruent. Like I can do it whenever I want, right? It's asynchronous, sorry. Like I send them the program, they do it. I'm not clocking in. It's not taking away from anything else I do.
And it helps mirror the things they do with you in person.
Yes. I write the plan, and
Yeah.
one of those sessions just happens to be in the gym with me. I'm not like one plan for in person and another plan for online. Like you're getting 3 workouts a week. You're paying me $100 a month to get the 2 per week you're doing on your own. And you're coming in and paying a different price for that training session where you get me as your coach.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's a cool
It's a
marriage.
hybrid model.
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
You have a
And
hybrid
even if
model.
you're coming in twice a week, even if it was twice a week one-on-one, like you
It's
could do
still not
twice a
enough.
week full body, and at some point they're going to realize like I'm not achieving my goals.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're either going to have to pay to see me 4 times a week, or like I can write you a plan to do on your own.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a separate charge. So I think you can definitely be both. One thing I will say is I've heard people online fitness coaches sort of selling this idea that once you get your NASM certification, don't coach people in person, go straight online. I think that's a horrible idea. I'll go on record saying I don't think anyone should ever do that.
You don't think
You'll
anybody
be a
should...
terrible coach.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've never had any hands-on work. You've never coached.
Never.
You and that I think is oftentimes the big discrepancy between the online and the in-person. And it's also why I think a lot of in-person coaches, myself included, will sometimes maybe not look down, but will look down on people who are online fitness coaches. They don't train in person. They are online fitness, period, the end. You will look at them and you will be, okay, well, all right, this guy's got 800,000 followers. This person's a really good salesman. Of
course they're an online
probably a very shitty coach. But that's the disconnect. You've got very, very good salesmen and businessmen who can make a killing as online coaches. Maybe not actually going to fix your rotator cuff. Probably not going to get you that 40 pounds off that you're hoping to have by September. Like it's a disconnect between what you want and what you get and where to choose.
It's like I don't know if I mentioned this in the course that I taught, but I heard someone talking about how like when the Olympics come around, everyone's like, especially dudes, like, God, I wish I looked like a swimmer. Right? Because swimmers have that like cover model almost like body, right? Like,
Right.
broad shoulders, 6-pack, all this stuff.
Skinny waist.
You're like, what do
Skinny
they
waist,
do? Like,
yeah.
how do they train? You're like, they don't look like that because they swim. They swim because they look like that.
Yeah. You did
Right?
mention
Like,
that, yeah.
That guy on Instagram, he doesn't look like that because he's an online coach. He's an online coach because he looks like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Genetics
He
are
has the
not fair.
body. He has the body to have 1 million followers.
Uh-huh.
Like all he needs to do is convert 0.5% of those into paying customers, and that dude's set.
Yeah.
Because he looks like that.
Yeah.
Not because of how he actually trains. He's basically a pro athlete.
He trains like a pro athlete, and
He has the genetics of a pro
genetics of a pro
That's
athlete.
what
Yeah.
it is.
He-
He's had a 6-pack since he was 8.
I was about to say,
Right.
it's like it's not fair, and I get that. But
Could you learn from that person about like how they plan their social media content and strategy? Absolutely.
But could you
I
learn
wouldn't
how to
take
get
their
yeah?
fitness, like maybe a fitness business course, maybe, but unless like slide 1 is like pick the right parents. So your genetics are on point and that's your start line, like they're lying.
Putting on your online coaching hat, how effective is periodization in online programming? Because there's some guys in the online industry, speaking of Jonathan Goodman, they're like, don't worry too much. Don't put too much emphasis on periodization because you've got guys that are going to be on vacation. You've got all these different things that can come up, and you're going to spend a lot of time building out this program, not knowing all of these different things that might come up and affect the periodization. Are there different considerations for in-person and online when you periodize a program?
So I think if you were writing like what we call it in PPSC is like team training or like group online, right? You write one program that's pushed out to everyone who subscribes to that program. Yeah, you probably shouldn't overthink that because you don't know how consistent that person's going to be when they're traveling, right? That's the point of like a low cost team training program.
Okay.
You could have 100 people and
Firing
keep
a
that cost
shotgun.
really low. And you're like, this program is meant to basically achieve these blanket results. if that sounds like something you want to do, like this would be a great program for you, and you don't want to pay the cost of like a one-on-one coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say yes. I do think that to be a good, so I look at almost everything through like a strength lens. That's how I train. That's how I rehab people too. I think most patients' underlying problem is they're not strong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right? You got to deal with the pain in the clinic, but then usually the problem is like their functional reserve is low because they're not strong enough to do more than like move their own body around. And like something breaks because they decided to move a chair, right? Or like they had the flu and then they couldn't get out of bed, and they could barely get out of bed when they were feeling great. Like they're just not functionally strong.
Weakness. Enough. You mentioned that in the search. It's a chronic condition in society. Weakness.
Yeah, and like strength to weight ratios are just like fucked.
Yeah,
but I think if the goal of a program is to improve your client's strength, even if it's online, group, or team training oriented, I think you have to have some sort of progressive element. Like maybe not periodized to the point of like every 9 weeks we're doing a deload, and like I'm going to do like undulating periodization, and I'm going to go like West Side style where I have like a dynamic effort day and a max effort. Like that's probably too far in the weeds.
Yeah.
But the way I approach it typically with stuff like that is I'll keep exercises pretty much the same for like 3 weeks. And I'll recommend my clients try and keep the weight the same for 3 weeks. And I bump the reps.
Okay.
Like week 1 is 4x8. Week 2 is 4x10. Try and use the same weight. Week 3 is 4x12. Try and use the same weight. Week 4 is 4x8. Go up in weight.
Simple.
So I'm trying to like always do that.
Yeah.
So I think you don't need to periodize it the way you would for an individual client or like a power lifter where you've got a meet target date and all that kind of stuff. But I do think you always have to have progression.
Sure.
Because that's maybe the biggest area that people who don't work with a coach or follow a plan mess up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's the guy who's been doing lat pull downs with the same weight for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same hamstring stretch.
Nor do they shift mesocycles, nor do they change. Oftentimes they go in like, all right, I know what today is. Today's back. I'm just going to go do what I always do, and this is the day.
3 sets of 10, 6 exercises, in and out.
Yeah.
It's always barbell rows,
Yeah.
lat pull downs for half a rep, right? Lat pull downs that are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen that guy, tricep extensions that are here.
Oh, yeah.
Biceps that are mostly back extensions.
Oh,
because it's way too heavy. And then they're like, no, the same. What's going on?
I would love.
Guess I'm getting older.
Yeah, right. I would love to take the second course the PPSC offers is what's it referred level 2 training.
PPSC training.
Do you teach training as well?
I have not taught that one.
Not yet.
No.
Oh, man, I'd love to take it with you. That would be a blast because that to me is where I love to hang out. That's my little sweet zone. That's my favorite.
Yes.
But I think a big part of what a trainer is being hired for is often your creativity. When it comes to that, half of the battle when it comes to periodization is just being creative and coming up with fun ways to do things. Half the reason people don't go to the gym is they're bored. They don't like it. They're like, this is overwhelming. A, I don't like all these people in here. I can't get to what I want. B, and then it's not really fun to me. I do the same things every time. There's no new equipment. There's nothing, like it's always the same. It's half the big battle with a coach is figuring out a way to make that entertaining.
I went to so I work at it's called Pit Fitness in Chandler.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I do semi-private training there.
Yeah.
And we had a community workout Saturday morning. It was like a full body chipper, kind of CrossFit style, 10 movements, 30 run reps of each.
Well, that sounds horrible.
Halloween themed. And then an 800-meter run with a med ball.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Just my favorite type of workout as a power lifter.
Yeah.
But there was a guy doing goblet squats, and he's like kind of kyphotic, like shoulders are already a little bit forward. He's a desk jockey type of person.
Yeah.
Holding a pretty heavy kettlebell here.
Yeah.
And so it's like the goblet squats don't look good because the kettlebell's pulling him into the posture he's already got.
Right.
I was like, hey man, just try this. Like flip the kettlebell over and hold the bell so the handle's pointing down.
Yeah.
And he came over after. He's like, dude, you're the MVP of this whole hour. He's like, I've been doing goblet squats for 2 years, and I've never thought to just flip the kettlebell over. He's like, those felt so much better. And I mean, it's that sort of creativity.
Yep.
Like that's as basic as it gets. Like I was filming some content a couple of weeks ago, and I basically did 52 variations of a 1.5 stance squat. Like that's a year of
52?
programming.
That's so
Well, you
Wow.
got like
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
TRX,
Uh-huh.
body weight, goblet, offset.
Do you have that video up on your
I've
social?
done 2 or 3 rounds of it. If you
Let's see.
scroll down a little bit,
Just
1.5
stop.
stance squat, press clean snatch. So that's like level 3.
I did
So
see this
there's
video.
part 2. So I did basically suspension, body weight, goblet, offset,
Uh-huh.
suspension with rotation, body weight with rotation, goblet with rotation, offset with rotation.
Uh-huh.
Start over, add a press. Start over, put your foot on an RX pad.
Uh-huh.
Start over, step into the squat instead of being fixed the whole time. Right here, my feet they're rotating a little bit. But what if you started with your feet together and stepped
I
into
see it.
the
Yeah,
1.5?
yeah.
So
And-
there's
and
another
to-
4.
To the layman, I mean, this would be, they probably wouldn't understand the differences between, they may think this is a totally different movement just because you changed a small thing. To us, it's like, yeah, I just made a small adjustment.
Mhm.
Now it's a new movement.
Yeah. So then you can go. Now
Oh,
you
I
got
like
an
that
upper
one.
body component.
I like that one. Like a single arm thruster.
Yep. And then you can add with a clean.
Clean,
So
yep.
you could go clean to press. Then you could go snatch. You could do all of that with your front foot on an RX pad. That's different. You could do all of that with rotation. You could do all of that stepping into the position first. Like
Mhm.
that's 4 options with 4 movements each. That's 16 weeks of programming.
Right. If you like the rotative aspect, have you ever seen the reactive trainer? You ever seen that thing, the Cortex?
Mm-mm.
It's that Eli, can you pull that up? It's this disc. It sits in this little swivel. It's got these ball bearings that allow it to move. It's the most sensitive reactive trainer that I've ever seen. No, it's not that one, buddy. You go reactive. There it is. Reactive training. I'm probably on their page somewhere.
Like a swivel board,
There you go.
basically.
Yeah. So you see that one?
Oh, yeah.
It's the single most sensitive.
Oh, it's almost like an endo board where it can go like any direction.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's you know what it is? It's an endo board with a bumper pad to it.
Mm-hmm.
So an endo board, as you know, I mean, you can slide right out from underneath that thing.
Yes.
Like you could. That's the negative side. It's why I don't do those with
could
clients
fall.
because you could
Yeah.
fall. With these, it's got a bumper. So see how he just hit it. See how he's stopping?
Mm-hmm.
He'll slide and then stop. It's got a stopping point. So you mentioned liking to work
But the
with
cue is like try and stay in the middle.
exactly.
Yeah.
The cue is don't touch the edges.
Mm.
And it works really well for senior populations, for people
Yeah.
with balance, immobility. That's something that really applies to both strength and
I like
PT.
that.
Oh, yeah, for push-ups are brutal on it. Oh, that's a good one. Never done that one.
But like that position could be a 1.5 stance squat with.
That's
anything
exactly
you
what
want.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
You could take this and
Yeah.
apply it to what you just did.
Yeah.
Eli,
You
there's
could
our
do the whole thing with
pickleball.
bands. You could do the whole thing with maces. You could do the whole thing with whatever you want.
Mhm. Click on the one with Jessica. Eli, see the one with, yeah. So this is one. So she started off by grabbing the XPT rack and doing this.
Mhm.
Now she's doing it with just a single stick mobility.
Nice.
So that's her progression.
Yeah.
We take away the stability of the object that you grab.
So speaking of the creativity part, like I personally don't think that most people need a personal trainer, but
Interesting.
I think that almost everyone needs a plan.
Okay.
Anyone who's not a fitness professional needs a plan.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think probably more people than have personal trainers need a personal trainer. But if the goal is to kind of like, and maybe this is the PT in me, it's like make people independent.
Mm-hmm.
Like my goal as a physical therapist is to discharge the person so they don't need me anymore.
Sure.
Maybe I discharge them to myself and I'm their coach now.
Yeah.
But I think at some point it's like, I don't need you to hold my hand anymore.
Mhm.
But I also don't know what to do next.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Don't
So
you
it's
think
like-
there's a difference between the PT and the personal trainer when it comes to that exact? Because PT,
Yes.
I should be able to let you go and fly away as
Yes.
soon as possible. So we're no longer doing that. Strength training, and that's what I explain to clients because oftentimes you have to do it in person in order to learn this. Having a trainer and having a good, like, going in there is a luxury. That's on top of everything else. It's a trip to Disneyland each day where you get to have some fun. You don't really outgrow, at least if I've done my job right, you shouldn't outgrow the enjoyment you get when you go in there, which is why continuing it happens.
So maybe a better way to put this would be like, it's not personal training or nothing.
Mm.
Like I either work with a personal trainer or I am completely on my own in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think most people need a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest. I mean, a personal trainer is huge because you can help people do things better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not right, because there's no right or wrong way necessarily, but like more optimally for them.
Sure.
So maybe it's more of like a hybrid, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I want you to see me once a week so I can teach you new things.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to also give you a plan so that on your own, you're making progress and you have like, so the slogan for my business, Stronger in Motion, originally was like fitness with purpose.
Okay.
Because I think most people just go to the gym and do the same thing over and over and over, and they have no idea why they're doing what they're doing other than someone told them to 2 decades ago, or like they did it in high school football.
Yeah.
Or they're afraid of anything but machines, so they just do a machine circuit.
Right.
And you're like, I'm just trying to lose weight. And you're like, you're sitting on a machine.
Yeah. Right.
And then you're sitting on the next machine, and then you're reading a book
While
on
walking.
the bike. Right? And there's not sweat dripping in your eyes because you're not trying hard. Like you don't know that what you're doing is not moving you towards your goal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah, I think everyone who's not a fitness professional who has a goal needs a plan from someone like a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe that is a remote teacher. Maybe it's someone who just wrote a curriculum and you download it.
Yeah. Something
right?
that you can
beneficial.
follow.
And then the next level will be like, you know what? I need to actually work with a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? Or I need to like take that in-person course because I've read 5 strength and conditioning books on my own now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got enough knowledge, but like it's not. I'm either more interested, and so I want to coach for my own purposes, or I feel like I don't know enough, so I need to coach for that purpose.
Everyone should have a coach.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You always,
Just like a
always,
teacher.
always, you need a teacher. Someone is always ahead of you. You're never I'm of the opinion you're never truly at the top, no matter who you are. I think you should always have somebody who is either at your level or ahead of you that you stick around with.
I don't
It's
know
very
if you
important.
said this on the podcast, but that was a good point you made when we were just talking after day one in Phoenix, was like how you set your prices and how you raised your prices was by just comparing yourself to someone who you thought was better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you haven't said that out loud on the podcast, that would be a good thing for people to hear, like how you did that.
Yeah, that's another big point of contention, I think, for trainers. This is after you've gotten your niche, you've gotten your clients, you've found out, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? How do I scale? And that's something that I'm sure your course covers, but it's something that, for me at least, that was a real tough thing to challenge. I didn't know whether or not it was, okay, let me just overnight 10x my prices and just let everyone figure it out. Maybe I lose them, maybe I don't. One area that I really struggled with was finding out the proper progression of pricing and how it could. I didn't want to, because I had a lot of people, including my father, telling me no one is ever going to pay you $100. At the time it was $100. He's like, no one is ever going to pay you $100 to come work out in your garage with you. It's never going to happen. And it was a very uncomfortable transition for me. But one thing that helped me was looking at the market around and looking at the trainers that were around me. And that's why in my location, I felt very comfortable in what I was doing. I said, no, I respectfully, I disagree. I think that this is worth $100 and then $120 and then $140 and now $150. And I did that based on who was in my area and what they were offering. I looked at, okay, well, if I'm charging $100, who around me is charging $100? Well, what are they doing? Well, okay, this guy, he's got this studio, he does semi-private 6-person classes. I go in, and I literally did this. I walked in, because I started with Google, which is a great place to start this. You find out what everyone's charging. I picked the top 3, went in, met with their coaches, and this is back, I don't think I could quite do this now, because they probably know who I am, but I walked in, took their classes, because a lot of these guys would either offer consultations or workshops or just something to get an introduction, talked to them, kind of dug out the nitty gritty of what it is they were offering and started from there. That was where I always had, I think I brought this up the day after class, I always had the backdrop of knowing where the top was. To me, still to this day, Ian Danny over at PEP, I think he charges $300 a session, but I know what he does. I know who he works with. I know what he offers. And that's still the peak. That's Mount Everest out there. And I'm not there yet, but is what I'm offering worth half of that? Yeah, it is. So 150 makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, very important. That's a really, really important area for, I think, any entrepreneur in any field. Find out what you're selling, find out who else is selling it and what they're charging. and try to check your ego out of it a bit and really be unbiased and ask yourself, is what I'm offering better or even the same? That's a big, because you can price yourself out of the market. If I jumped into this and I said, well, I'm by myself here, that's private training, I'm going to charge $150. Ain't nobody going to come in here and work. No. I didn't even have AC. I had no AC. That would not have worked. But with time, with patience, and just with knowledge being kind of the backbone of all these decisions, it did work.
Yeah.
And so it's working now.
I don't know if you did it this way, but one thing I found effective is when I've decided to raise my prices, I'll raise them for new clients and keep prices the same for current clients, 100%. And maybe not even tell the current clients that I've raised my prices until there's sort of like a natural conversation.
Yeah.
So like recently I had a client who just competed in a powerlifting meet. And it's like after the meet, it's like, hey, just wanted to check in. Since the last time we like talked about pricing, like I've raised the prices for one-on-one powerlifting coaching. I also have this like team training option now, which is much lower price where you get non-customized workouts.
Yep.
This is the price, the new price. Like you're a friend, you've been a client for 6 months. I'm going to give you a discount off of that, but it's still higher than what you've been paying.
Right.
Like which option do you want to do? Do you want to like switch to the team training for a while till you get ready for another meet and then go one-on-one, stick with one-on-one? And so it's like you're not just blindsiding them on a Wednesday, like randomly.
And offer them maybe even just a window into why this is happening.
Yeah.
See, for me, when I scaled up, I did it exactly how you said. I kept for as long as I could. Eventually, and today, I like it because everybody's on the same page for one-on-ones. And before I go into this, I want to let you know your conversation with me about how you structured semi-private actually made me open up semi-private, which is what I'm doing now. Oftentimes, the push is charge more, charge more, charge more. But sometimes, if you're already at that area where you say, okay, I'm very comfortable at a $150 an hour, like that's okay for me. Changing and not scaling back, but changing the structure of it, opening up semi-private to me, I think is going to be enormous. The market for $75 an hour is thrice what the market for $150 an hour is.
And you get 3 people at 75, that's a lot more than 150.
4.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I just decided, okay, I'll just carve out 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Hey, in the beginning, there'll be one person in there and I'll be getting half what I think I'm worth, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. This is something that goes for longevity. And all I had to do was reach out to one of the 40 people that have reached out to me in the last 6 months and say, hey, I know you couldn't swing it at 150. I just want you to know now it's 75 if you can come at 4. And in a week.
And you're okay with a couple other people being there.
Yeah.
Right? You're getting your own plan. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just saying the training is exactly the same. It's going to be circuit based. There's going to be A and B squad, 2 circuits, 4 circuits for the workout, total of 45, 50 minutes. You know the drill. You already hear. It's just with a couple other people.
Yep.
Most of them, that's perfectly fine. Most people are okay with that. And that was a big thing that you pointed out that I decided to adapt. And I think that's going to be very, very, very beneficial.
Yeah. I got that from, I believe it was Rachel Cosgrove is her name. She's got a really, really successful gym business, I think is based in California. She was one of the speakers at, it was called the Raise the Bar event in Orlando.
I've heard of it.
Last February. They're doing another one this year.
Are they?
It was very good. Like amazing lineup of speakers, like from Dan John to like Charlie Weingroff to Tony Gentlecore to John Russin. It was fantastic. But she talked about how like iterations of her business, like almost failing, changing, pivoting, like couldn't afford rent this month to like, I have to expand because we have so many clients. I need a bigger space. We got to knock a wall down. And at this
I like that. I
like,
do that all the time.
They're like 100% semi-private.
Yeah. And private, semi-private. If you were to ask me, this is what we sell when we do seminar work. We are selling the business model that gets you to the point where you are private, semi-private, in person with the option to also do online high ticket offers. But high ticket, that's what I like. I want to be the best in my market and be paid like I'm the best in my market. That's the idea that I think everyone should strive for. If you're not striving to be better than everyone else, I just don't understand your mindset quite the same as mine. Because to me,
the podcast, right?
Yeah, there you go. They're becoming the 1%. That's right. Boom. But to me, it's very important to have that mindset and to apply it in how you actually work.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think a lot of we work with like coaches teaching them how to transition online. And I think a lot of what, teaching them how to do is first of all, it's a compounding effect. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Like you started with no air conditioning in a garage gym and you've built it into this. But it's something that takes experience. So over time, people can see that you've made progress with people. But it's also something we touched on earlier about being able to put into context what it is that you're offering your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you, for example, we tell our coaches, we're like, never go out and tell someone what your pricing is before sitting down with them one-on-one, and put it into context what you're offering them and the transformation that you're going to give to them by the end of the program.
Huge.
And so you need to be able to build up that experience and put into context the transformation that you're offering your clients. And I think once you get to that point where you can do that successfully, then you have a very nice high ticket program, nice high ticket offer you can give to people.
Mm-hmm. And
then you end the sentence right with like, for only $600 a month.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like,
only.
Wow,
dang, I thought that was gonna be more.
Yeah.
Versus leading with like, so it's gonna be $600 a month.
Yeah.
Like, nope. Oh, bro, conversation over.
One time I ran an ad. I'll never do this again. The admin of the page literally called me. One time I ran an ad that included the pricing in it, and it became a viral thread of hate and negativity like I've never seen before. This is one time. The admin of I posted it on Go Gilbert. You familiar with Go Gilbert, the page?
No.
Oh, bro, get on that.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about marketing, but local advertising on Facebook groups. First of all, these groups, like everything else, are pay to play. If you want to use and leverage groups, you can contact the admins, and usually for like maybe $500 a year, they'll let you post your ads. You know how usually they're like, this page is monitored, you cannot post ads. Yeah, that's usually bullshit. Contact the admin, say, hey, what's your pay to play pricing for advertising? They'll be like, yeah, here's a splash page, check it out, and they'll have options month to month, but go for the year. I've done that for 3 groups now. That's massive overhaul of marketing. That's a good little hack that you can take advantage for guys who are doing in person. But the point is, I did one time on one of those pages, I posted something that included, I even did it by accident. I didn't mean to. I copied and pasted it and I threw it on and it just went on and I was like, oh shit. Well, I'll just let it go. It's fine. I mean, within an hour, the number of people who would like what kind of a criminal would charge $150 for personal training? You should be like it's and finally the admin, he had to because people were mad at me and mad at him for letting me on and for letting me do the ad. And he's like, first of all, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Just I think you know where you shouldn't go with that from now on. I'm like, yeah, I got it. And I took it down, but never, ever lead with the pricing of what you're doing. No. If you're in high ticket, you have to understand that people are very wary of buying, especially online. They think they're getting had because they can. They are. A lot of the time, people are out to get your money. They're going to give you the cookie cutter experience, and you're probably not going to get what you want. So if you are going to be an online coach selling high ticket, you need to take it as seriously and take as much time and dedication to that, at least on the back end of creating your program, as you do with in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. So what is, can you let me behind the curtain a little bit? What are a couple of the golden rules of going from online to in-person or in-person to online?
Yeah. So a lot of the coaches we work with have already established an in-person, and then we're helping them transition online. One of the big things that we need to help people to understand is look, you're used to talking to people in your geographic location, in your immediate area. We need to establish a methodology in order to get you traffic, and we do so organically in the beginning. So it's you have 2 different gyms, and one is in the town center, one is out of the town. Obviously, the one in town center is going to have more traffic going by it. Same thing applies online. We're trying to up the amount of traffic that goes past your offer on a daily basis, and we can do that because we've learned to basically leverage the power of Facebook organics, Instagram organics, LinkedIn in order to up that traffic. And it's just some daily functions that we teach our coaches how to do every single day. But once they have that traffic picked up, then it's really about networking and community building. Today we live in an economy where it's very value-based. You have a ton of free value. Someone can go to your site and look at it and go, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's also given me value that I've incorporated. So, and it used to be like, hey, give me the money, I'll give you all the value. And now it's like, well, I need to see that you can demonstrate value before I'm ready to pay you and for you to become my online coach. And so we teach them how to build this community. And the community is really captured leads. And what we know is like most leads don't convert for 3 to 6 months. Like
Easily.
it takes, easily 3 to 6 months. So
It's like 24 exposures or something.
yeah.
The number of people
Just
who
keeps going
DM
up.
me on Instagram, and oftentimes, because I have a pretty good understanding of who, maybe not now because there's a lot, but people who like and interact with us the most, I kind of know who they are. Like I see them, they pop up, I get an idea. I'll have people DM me and say, hey, I've followed you for 2 years and I think I want to start training. That kind of thing is proof of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. You will get people, you don't know they're watching you, but they're watching.
they don't like
Just out of
any of your
They don't
stuff.
like any, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, hey, Dick, you've been watching me for 2 years. I've never seen you before. You've never liked anything I've put out, but you love what I've been putting out.
Or your old, like my old high school friends or something, like old college friends, you see them for the first time in a decade, they're like, man, you're killing it on social media. You're like, I didn't even know you had social media. Can you not just like heart button one time?
One time, oh, people just watch it like, well, that was good.
Oh, cool. I've been using your workouts. You're like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. but it is true, and it does work, and it takes time. And yeah, I think you said like it's like 24 times they have to see. And especially if it's like an ad, if they're not following you, in order for them to actually click on your ad, fill out your form, or
impressive.
message
Yep.
you, they have to see you like
So many
3 or
times.
4 or 5 times. That's why marketing is such a reoccurring cost. You never take your foot off the gas. It just has to keep going,
Yeah.
whether it's organic or paid.
One of the cool things though is when our coaches do start to get this community together, is we teach them basically how to open like what we call them hype cycles, but it's basically creating urgency, scarcity, all the environmental factors to push people to buy. So those people that are on the fence for like 3 to 6 months, like all of a sudden they've got a window and they can get something, and there's bonuses that we can add on top. So we never discount the prices. So they're like, okay, well, if I get in now, I can get an extra month of coaching, or I can get X, Y, and Z on top of what the static offer in the group is. And so seeing those, like most of the sales that they make are in those short periods, those hype cycles. And then, beyond that, it's like teaching people how to get on sales calls, what we call discovery calls, strategy calls, triaging, and then converting into high ticket prospects. So yeah, it's putting everything together and really teaching people, one step at a time. You have to master each different part of the client experience. You have to master each different part of organics, of community building, of sales. And, it's not just being good at one, it's being good at everything and being able to put it all together. So
That's definitely an area where I struggle. Like my online strategy is basically just be consistent.
That's not
I
a
think
bad one.
helps.
it's not a bad one.
It's not a bad
just
one.
Keep posting.
That's a huge one, actually.
Yeah, just keep posting. But I know for a fact that I could be doing a better job of like one post leading to the next, leading to the third.
Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
you're do-
actually like posing a question, providing an answer, that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But the one thing I have going for me is I just keep posting.
No, you have great content. The one thing I would say that is difficult for a lot of coaches to do consistently, because it's when you're putting your own stuff out, to you that's the most important thing in the world. But like we said earlier, sometimes you have to see the same thing 7 times before it resonates if you're part of the audience. And so getting coaches into the habit of posting calls to action, for example, that's difficult because they'll post one call to action and they'll have a negative experience and they'll go, I'm not doing that again. It's embarrassing. It didn't work. Well, you got to do that like 7 times, 14 times, 21 times before you start getting consistent results. And it's difficult to keep going back to that well when there's no water, in the beginning.
You touched on something that briefly you touched on it, didn't expand it. When creating the call to action, never, ever, ever slash the price. The price is not the thing you give them when they do the call to action. You're devaluing the product, whatever it may be. So that's very important. And to your point, one thing you're doing that you may not even realize is happening right now is a huge marketing technique, especially with Insta, and that's collaboration.
Yeah.
Working with other people like you're doing right now. Everything we do from this is going to be a collaborative effort. That's what Instagram rewards. If you want to build organic following, see, right now, you're doing everything kind of by yourself. I think, I mean, I've seen other people on your page, but the best Instagram marketers, whether they're fitness or not, they collaborate with other Instagram influencers. That's how you scale. That's what Instagram wants. They don't want, yes, paid advertisement will get you followers. And like everything else, it's pay to play. So I always advise people, throw $5 a day behind an ad on something you're doing. Instagram will see that, and you will get followers from that. People who are, every single person, I run 3 consecutive ads at any given time. Every single person that even sees the ad, I follow them, I send them a message, I like 3 of their posts, and I comment on an interaction. So that's every single person. You think that person's not going to follow me? They totally are. That is one person who knows who you are. I've localized my ads. That's another thing that Instagram does very well. You can localize your ads. So I know that person is within 5 miles of me. They may not buy now, but they might in a year. If I can get them to follow me, and having a really clear call to action, a reason for them to follow you, because you can't just be like, oh, hey, please follow me back. That sounds totally fake and just like a bad date. Like nobody wants that. But if you have something, like what I tell them is, justifiably, so I say, hey, by the way, if you follow our page, this is where we do discounts, giveaways, and you'll get some cool workout stuff as well. You can copyright a lot of those so that it's already locked in the chamber, but you want to have something ready you want to have a reason ready for them to actually follow you, because otherwise they feel like they're being sold.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would add on to what you said in your call to action, don't ever say a price. I would say, don't ever say that you're going to be the one to help these people as well. Like that conversation needs to take place, but if you're a specialist, you don't want to come off as someone that can help everyone. Like the conversation and the call to action needs to be like, hey, let's sit down. Let me listen to your experience and see where you're at and see if we're a good fit to work together. Because if someone is approached thinking that you're going to help everyone, well, you're no longer a specialist. You're not putting yourself in that category. You're a generalist, and they're going to expect some type of possibly ebook program, something like that they've experienced in the past and had probably a negative experience with. So it's really like, hey, sales today is like, hey, let's sit down. Let me listen to you and see if there's a possibility where I can help you. And especially in the high ticket environment, you see a lot of coaches nowadays that are like, hey, I can't help you, but I can show you someone that can, or I can direct you somewhere that can. And that's okay, because, it goes back to what we were talking about, figuring out your niche. It's like, who do I impact the most? Who can I help the most? And who do I enjoy working with the most? You're going to get the best results out of that program any day.
Yep.
For in-person too. When I have someone that contacts me and wants to know about training, wants to know, and once we've gone through all the scheduling and what are their goals and what is their budget, obviously that's usually where it gets hung up. What's their budget? When they realize they can only come once a week, sometimes that kind of discredits them, or not discredits them, dismays them. They don't want to come. They want to come, but they know they can't. I always refer them to a local area. I have a colleague. He does his thing out of his garage. I refer him to him. I know he's half the price I am. I'm like, hey, look, there's another guy. He's right down the street. I know you're around this area, so it must work. Contact Chris Desmarchais. He does stuff over there. Always have another, so it doesn't feel like you're like, oh, well, you can't. Well, then adios.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, at first and foremost, we are in the service industry. We are here to help people. But being a professional that can be selective, and honestly coming off like, no, you need to sell to me. Like you're the client. I decide whether or not you work with me. And that's it. When you're starting out and you're training and you're in your box gym, usually that is non-existent. You can't tell somebody who comes to you and is willing to pay you, no, I don't know. Maybe this isn't a good fit. It doesn't seem like we're on the same level, something like that. But getting to that point, I think, is important as well.
That's a great place to be.
Where can people find you, bro? Give us your socials.
So best place by far is Instagram. It's at drdavidskolnik.dpt. That's where I am by far the most. I am perfectly happy to have anyone email me. That's david@strongerinmotion.com. I think I said this on a podcast earlier this week. My website is perpetually under construction, but it's strongerinmotion.com.
Gotcha.
It's a great spot to be. Those are the best. Yeah. And then if you want to learn from me, like if you are a fitness professional or a rehab professional who wants to take a pain-free performance course, pain-free training on Instagram or getppsc.com. I think our 2023 course calendar is probably coming out this month.
Okay.
You can always save 15% on any course, online or in person, with my code, which is Essential. Okay. And if you want to listen to my podcast, it's the Essential Strength Podcast.
Outstanding. And when that calendar does come out, let me know, because I'll throw that on story as well.
Absolutely.
I know that a lot of trainers have been asking me about that since I took it. It is a good course, at least the one I took. So when those new courses do come, especially if they're coming to Phoenix, that is something that I want to know about.
December 2nd and 3rd, I'm teaching at in Tempe.
The same location, Hammer CrossFit?
No, not Hammer CrossFit. It's a Lifetime event.
Oh, cool.
But it's open to local trainers. So December 2nd and 3rd at Lifetime I believe it's in Tempe. And then December 10th and 11th will be our annual online course.
Oh, cool.
So we are recording that here in Chandler with
awesome.
the whole,
Outstanding.
all 14 of our coaching staff coming in.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Wow.
An awesome.
Well, thanks, bro. That was
Absolutely.
outstanding.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on, bro.
Pleasure.
We'll cut it there.